How you doing, everybody? My name is Denny and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Denny. It's great to be here. I'd like to thank Joe for inviting me down, and welcome the newcomers. If there's anybody that didn't identify, a big welcome to you. And congratulations, Tony, on 40 years. That's a long time without a drink, huh? Jesus. And happy birthday to the other birthday folks, Christian. And happy marriage to you. Marriage works. Marriage works. I'm one of those married guys, been married 33 years, so I think it's a pretty good deal, actually. And yeah, congratulations to all. We're all here. You know, that's enough said right there. It's an honor and a privilege to be asked to speak at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, because like Jack, the reaction people used to have to me was, is he gone yet? You know, that's, they were happy when I would leave, and when I came in, I had a couple of buddies I used to come in with. They said, "Oh, it's going to be a long day," and that's what life was like. My road to Alcoholics Anonymous was horrible, and I'm glad it was, because it allowed me to stick around. This is not a this is not a pretty thing, alcoholism. It's a, and another thing is I'm a musician too. I'm a drummer, so I've got alcoholism, then I got another disease, like the people say that drummers are hopeless. And I kind of lived up to that for many a year. It almost gave me the right to do what I was doing, And you know how you can tell when the drum riser is level? It's when the drool runs out of both sides of the drummer's mouth. And that's the way it was for me most of my life. I was just a lot of drool, and I figured, being a drummer, it was just part of my life. I mean, there was a lot of sex, it was a slip of the tongue. There was a lot of alcohol, there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of stuff going on, in my line of work, and I thought it was all part of it. I thought that it had to be there in order to make the music and stuff like that. And I was just all wrong about just about everything in my life, This alcoholism thing is a disease of perception, and, it's like, I always thought that I really was right on the money. I knew exactly where the line was, but it's like, if you're taking a boat, you're going to Hawaii or something, and you're 3 degrees off, like 6 months later, you end up in South America. That's kind of what happened in my life, I thought I was right on the money, but I was not, I'm one of those alcoholics. I came from a dysfunctional family. It was normal. There was no alcoholism in my family, so I can't blame it on anybody. That pissed me off for a while. But I had a father. I used to bring my father a bottle of booze. I was in the Navy too, Tony. I was in the Admiral's Band in the 6th Fleet, actually. And I used to bring my dad bottles of, he liked this Drambuie. Who the hell would drink Drambuie, I mean? You'd buy him a bottle of this stuff, and 5 years later, it'd still be there, I'd buy a bottle of scotch or a bottle of something, and I'd come home years later, it'd still be there. I said, when are you going to drink this stuff, So I never saw my dad drunk. He was a drummer too, but he was also an insurance salesman. He was a little more responsible than I was. I came from a church-going family. My mother was the church secretary. My father was a deacon. My grandfather an elder. My grandmother was in the church choir. My sister and my brother were in the church choir, and I stole money out of the collection plate. That was about as good as I could do. I had, from the time I was I had 13 years of perfect attendance in Sunday school and church. In those days, back east, I'm from Pennsylvania too, north of Allentown, up in the coal regions. They gave you a little badge, to start you off. It's 1 year perfect attendance for Sunday school, and then each year they would add a bar under it. And I had 13 of these. I used to walk lopsided. It was so heavy, And when, from the time I was 13 years old, I was playing in the gin mills, like my buddy Jack talked about. I was playing in the gin mills Saturday night at least, if not a couple of nights a week. But Saturday night, you always get home 3:30 in the morning, and my mom would always come in, and she'd kick the bed, and she said, "Get up, you're going to church, God damn it," And I always got like mixed messages from that. But I went up, and I got up, and I went to church, and I was smart. I got this job of collecting all the Sunday school offerings, from the different groups, and then I would take it down to the church office, count it up, steal a little bit, run across the street to the drugstore, have a smoke and a Coke, wait till the damn thing was over, and then come back, because I still had to go to church. So now, and when I was 13, the old guys that I was working with were giving me drinks, like, "Oh, get the kid a beer, I would drink anything they brought me except slow gin fizzes. I just couldn't handle that stuff. But, you know, so I was drinking and having fun with alcohol. And in the morning, after Sunday school, my job was, my grandfather, now, he wasn't an alcoholic. I never saw him drunk like I got drunk regularly. But my granddad used to like to drink once in a while, and he never had a problem with it. And he didn't drink every day like I did. He didn't even, there was no regularity to his drinking, but he enjoyed a drink, you know. And sometimes he used to go, take his old 55 Plymouth, and he'd run. Between Sunday school and church was a window of about 15 minutes. And he would run down to the American Legion home and he'd have a shot and a beer. And he'd come back to church and we'd sit in the back. The whole family would be up there in the choir loft and I'd be in the back with my granddad. And about 10 minutes into the service, he would nod off and they'd all wave to me, get him awake, you know. So I had to wake him up. That was my job. And I thought my granddad was just so cool, you know. I wanted to do that. So anyway, that's how my life started, really, really normal. I got out of, I was really good in school. I was so good that they wanted me to stay in the 11th grade one more year because I had so much fun there. So I did an extra year in the 11th grade, got out of school, and that was Vietnam time. And it was either go to Vietnam or join the Navy, and I took an audition to get into the band, so I got into the Navy band, so I wouldn't have to, not the Navy band, a Navy band, so I wouldn't have to carry a gun or any of that stuff. And I got some schooling out of it, and sent me around the world, and where I learned about my drinking. You know, I was like, really, now I'm a young kid, and I'm in South America, I'm in Europe, and I'm learning about different kinds of booze and stuff like this. And when we got to, where the hell, we went to Beirut, Lebanon, and I learned about this stuff you can smoke called hashish, and, you know, then we went to Marrakesh, and not Marrakesh, Casablanca, but we went to Morocco and learned about keef and stuff like this. So I'm just having a lot of fun, you know, because I always felt a little different. I wasn't quite right, and the alcohol and the drugs just seemed to make me right. You know, it just made me comfortable. It made me fine. Whatever you want to do is okay with me now, and I could join in. So I went through the service. Now, while I was in the last duty I had in the south of France was on the Admiral of the 6th Fleet's band, and that's where I met my wife. You know, I was, I lived on the French Riviera. The tourists didn't like us playing the national anthem from our ship in the morning because it woke them up. So when our ship was in port, we didn't even have to show up for 4 days at a time. So we all had, the band anyway, we had apartments in Nice, France, you know, and a carton of cigarettes cost $1, a bottle of Chivas Regal cost $3, you know. We were living large, and it was a lot of fun, and I didn't have to show up for 4 days at a stretch, 96-hour passes, come back telling you're still alive. And that was my service, and I learned to drink like a gentleman there because I learned how to drink the right red wines with the right meals and the right cognacs after the meal and all this stuff, you know. So it lasted. I'm having fun with alcohol. I married. I met a girl over there when I was in the Navy band. Married her, brought her, came back to the States, married her, and started my career in New York. I'm in New York now. I'm doing what they call a studio musician. I'm doing a lot. I got very successful right away. I was very lucky, and used to make TV commercials and records and stuff like this. And I was doing good, and we were working like 18-hour days. So, and this is like 67, 68, 1968, around there. And so the guys started using this funny little white powder to stay awake, you know. So I said, yeah, give me some of that stuff too, because they were telling us that cocaine wasn't addictive in those days. They were just telling us that it was nature's way of telling you you're making too much money. But what was happening was we were like working those long shifts, and you know, I wasn't getting high, but I was staying awake, and so I did that a couple of grams a day for a couple of years, you know, and we were just cranking away, making a lot of money, and the ad agency and the record company guys would come in, and they'd come in with cocaine and Jack Daniels or wine or beer and marijuana and everything, and they say, okay guys, here's all you guys need, now let's have the magic. And we did. We gave them the magic, you know, and thought it was cool, you know. My idea of success was having enough money to stay as high as I'd like to be, you know, and that's as far as I could see at the time. And I didn't know that I was approaching that line that we cross over when alcoholism takes over. Anyway, what happened was a guy from England, a very big pop figure, came from England to record a record in New York, and he auditioned some of the New York musicians, and he hired me to do this record. So I did the record, and it really put my name to the top of the heap. You know, everybody knew who I was after this project. And after this project was done, it was very successful. He called me up and he said, how would you and your wife like to come over to England and just take a little vacation? And I said, sure. I just made a nice little taste of money doing this guy's record. Go over there, and then he surprised us and said, I'd like to form a band. And he came from a really, really big band. I don't mention names in Alcoholics Anonymous because I want to be another drunk just like you. But he came from a really big band, and I said, wow, what a great... So I checked with all my friends in New York. I said, what should I do here? I have a good career going. Should I leave? Should I go with this? Are you kidding? They said, go, you'll make enough money. And everybody saw it as like the incredible opportunity. So we left. We left New York. We moved to England. We set up housekeeping, you know, we got ourselves our pad in New York, and London, and we got situated, and we started doing this band, and the band was very successful, and we had an agreement with the guy that we were all going to share in the profits. Well, that didn't happen, and in this, I said more chuckles, you know. These agreements, you know, like in the 70s, people just we were into making music and taking a lot of drugs and all. We weren't about doing all of this, the right kind of stuff. And so I stayed with this guy for a couple of years, or 3, 4 years. We're over there, and the guys are bitching because the money isn't. We're getting together tonight. The band would be get together saying, "Man, we ain't making any money here. When's this money going to come?" And we're selling millions of records, and we're all over the news and everything. And it was just getting tough, you know. And so I up and. We were off to we were going to Africa to make a record in Lagos, Nigeria, and the limo was outside my door that night to take me to the airport to go, and I called this guy up and I said, you know what, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. And I slam dunked him, you know. And so then I came back to the States after leaving that situation, and now my drinking, my alcoholism had taken on a whole different aspect. Now I was drinking at somebody, you know, I'll show him. You know, when in our inventory process, people in AA talk about resentment as being like, it's so crazy. It's taking poison and expecting someone else to die, and that's exactly what I was doing. This guy didn't even know that I was what was going on, but I'm drinking at him, and all of a sudden that spiral that Jack was talking about, my life is spiraling down. You know, things are getting tough. Moved to California. Came out here. I thought California would be a great place because I wanted to play with the studio orchestras, which is what I do now, making movie scores and stuff like that, once in a while when they call me. But I came out here to do that, and I came out here figuring from this situation with my credentials, they'll hire me immediately. And I got here, and they said, who the hell are you, and who sent for you? Now I've got 2 resentments. I resent this guy for not paying me, and California isn't hiring me, so what can I do now but drink? So I'm in the bar. I used to drink at this place called the Casting Office. It was just an upholstered sewer that used to open at 10:40 in the morning. I don't know who the hell figured out what time that opening time should be, but you know, I smoked a lot of marijuana too. My wife was working. One of us had to work. It sure wasn't me. She was starting to do really good at work, and she would come home a little later every night because if she timed it right and got home late enough, I'd be passed out, be blacked out, and she wouldn't have to deal with me at all. But I used to get up in the morning. I'd get up, and the first thing I would do, I'd roll up a joint. I'd roll up. So get up, roll up, take a big hit, then throw up, and then give up. And that was about my life, you know. That get up, roll up, throw up, give up. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then I'd run down to the Poquito Mas. I'd pick up my breakfast burrito, run up to my bar at 10:40. Come on, it's 10:40. And I'd go in there and I'd start with the beers and the burritos just to get right, you know, have a few joints. Maybe some would have a little bit of cocaine and stuff. So that's the way I was living, you know, and that went on for a number of years, and it was horrible. 1986 came along, and I was experiencing some chest pains, and I'm also in the angioplasty club. I don't know, there's probably a few of us in here. I was over here at St. John's Hospital, though it was 1986. My wife and I were celebrating our 20th anniversary. It was Thanksgiving, and I was having a heart problem. And they're sticking a balloon in my heart, and the doctor was a buddy of mine, and he said, Oh, by the way, we got you hooked up to a pacemaker and everything, so don't worry about it. We're going to inflate the balloon now, but well, you're covered. And as he said that, I heard the nurse say, he's going, he's going, he's gone. And at that point, I just left the planet there for a hot minute. I think God was trying to get my attention that day. You know, I really do. I think he was talking directly to me, and I still wasn't listening. Made it through that little procedure. I was only there 72 hours, and so my buddy, a buddy of mine, he owned a little limousine company, and he thought it'd be nice to send a car to take us home from the hospital because it was Thanksgiving and our 20th anniversary, and I just had a near-death experience. So we're in the car coming home from the hospital, and I, like Jack, I mean, the doctors told me that white wine was good for the circulation. So I wanted to make sure I had good circulation, and I stopped at Vendome and picked up a couple of bottles of circulation. And then the limo had a phone in it. In 1986, all these cell phones weren't happening, so what else? Pick up my dope dealer and get a little bag of weed, you know, because I just couldn't imagine life without it. And so I went like that for a couple of years, and then the disease picks up. Those couple of years, though, they were the hardest. I had 1 or 2 glasses of white wine a day, just like the doctor said. I went up and I ran around Lake Hollywood every morning. I lost 35 pounds. I stopped eating meat. I did all of this stuff, and I really did feel great. But, man, and I don't know about you, but that was a sentence, just having 1 or 2 glasses of white wine. So, and a joint, that would be it. You know, just one little hit, just almost a make-believe high, you know. That's all I was allowed. And after a couple of years of this, I'm passing my treadmill tests and everything is looking better, and I'm saying, I can get away with this. And the disease kicked back in, you know, and now I'm going, within a matter of time, I'm back to my old habits. And the doctors told me I could never do cocaine again, and I was doing cocaine again. I was doing everything. A bottle of Stoli, a bottle of cognac, plenty of wine, lots of beer. You know, I even worked for a club owner at the end there that said, I can't pay you what you're worth so you can have an open bar tab. I went, oh, God. I mean, the girls that worked there, they had to hide it from them. Like, I mean, I probably drank them out of. But it was good. It got me here a lot earlier than I could have got here on my own, you know. So anyway, drink. It's all bullshit, because we've all got that, you know. Let me talk about the good part when you finally get here, you know. I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1984. I'd done something terrible at home, you know, in a blackout. My wife told me about it the next day, and I said, nah, that wasn't me. And she says, it was only me and you here. So I had to believe her, you know, and it was in front of her best friends, too. So I thought, well, I better do something about this. And I don't know where Alcoholics Anonymous came from, but I went to the Radford Tuesday night newcomer meeting. Out of the blue, I walked in there, and I just walked into the room, and I sat in the back. My wife came with me, and I sat there, and I just sobbed like a baby. And there was a picture on the wall above the fireplace of a guy sitting on the end of the bed, drunk, you know, in the hangover. It's a great picture. I mean, you'll see it in some clubhouses, you know. It's a guy sitting there in his cups just waiting for the guy from AA to show up and talk to him, kind of deal. And I just looked at this picture all night, and I just couldn't take my eyes off it. And I kept sobbing because everybody was talking about God and all this shit, and I'm just sobbing because I'm sitting here in front of this God that I grew up with, and I'm just a miserable wreck. I'm so ashamed of myself. And then we stood up at the end of the thing, and we did the Lord's Prayer, and we all hooked up and said, oh, held hands, and I lost it, man. I just, what have I done to myself? What have I done to my life? And still didn't get sober, you know. I hung around meetings for maybe a month, off and on, a meeting here, a meeting there, just willing it myself. I never stopped smoking pot, but I stopped drinking for a little bit, you know. And I went to some meetings, and finally, a buddy of mine took me up to the rafters on a Sunday morning for a Sunday morning AA breakfast, and it was just a room full of tattoos and piercings and earrings and stuff, you know. I felt great there. I felt like I was in my bar, but my wife was scared shitless. And she said, honey, I don't think you're one of those people. And I went, yes! Right back to the bar. So my sobriety date is January the 2nd, 1991, so I'm coming up on 9 years now. And I'm really blessed with this program. I mean, when I stopped drinking a couple of months before that, but I kept smoking the herb, and I started going to one meeting a week. And I'm starting to hear the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm starting to believe that there's actually hope that I can stop doing what I was doing, because I couldn't stop. You know, I went to my family doctor and I said, Ralph, I got a problem with alcohol. What do I do? And he says, well, if you really have a problem with alcohol, the only answer is Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, what else you got? So I tried acupuncture, then I tried hypnosis. I mean, I tried it all. I just didn't want to, I couldn't imagine. What do you mean you can't have a glass of red wine with a steak, you know? Or what do you mean you can't have a beautiful white Chablis with fish, you know? Or you can't have a cognac after dinner. I'm civilized here, you know. It was, I just couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine having sex without being loaded, you know, without having a couple of joints or a drink or a movie or anything, you know. And all of a sudden, I was in January. Well, so I'm not drinking now, but I'm smoking the dope, and all of a sudden I'm hearing the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. I worked New Year's Eve with a band. I had 20 joints rolled up. I had a 2-gram vial, and I had a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne. That was the insanity of it. But after that, I started going to the meetings. I started going 2-3 meetings a day. I met my sponsor that became my sponsor at 29 days of sobriety. He started taking me through the steps. That's when it started happening for me. That's when the good stuff. So let me get into that really quick, because I usually talk more about the steps than I do tonight. I just got screwed up on timing here or something. But anyway, I met this man that I liked the way he carried himself in the rooms. And I said to him, would you be my sponsor? He said, okay, I want you to do this. I want you to call me every day for 7 days. You'd be surprised how many guys won't do that or can't do that. A strange man, just pick up the phone and call another drunk for 7 days and tell him a little bit about yourself. And I did that with my sponsor. He said, I want you to start saying this prayer. He didn't ask me if I believed in God or anything. He said, I would like you to get up in the morning and say, I'm powerless, my life's unmanageable, but I know you'll restore me to sanity. So I'm turning my life and my will over to you. I can do that. Started doing that. Now I'm going to 2-3 meetings a day. I had a little mailbox money that came in, a job that wasn't even my own vocation. Just a little thing came in. I had a little money coming in. I'm starting to feel better. I'm not drinking. First time in my life since I was a kid, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to meetings. I'm getting the gift. I'm starting to feel like something good is going on in my life, you know. So I'm seeing guys that go out. What's this going out shit? Wasn't it miserable enough that they have to go out for more? And it scared the shit out of me. I said to my sponsor, I said, I'm afraid if I go out, I won't come back. And some old timer told me that I'd never do a 4th step. He said, you'll drink before you do a 4th step. I'd like to show this son of a bitch, you know. And that's all it took for me. Somebody get in my face and tell me, you ain't going to do it. I said to my sponsor, I want to work this 4th step that everybody's talking about. He says, fine, come on over. I believe that that's the day that the miracle started for me in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was willing to do this thing. I called my sponsor up, went over to his house, and we got this kitchen table, put some coffee on, you know, got the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous out. And he started reading chapter 5 to me, just the way we read it at every meeting, but he read it to me very slow so I could understand what he was talking about, you know. Chapter 5 is called How It Works because it's how it works. It really is the program in a nutshell. And we read, just like we read in the meeting at every meeting, read through to the A, B's, and C's, the 3 pertinent ideas at the end of the reading that we read in every meeting of chapter 5. And then it goes on to talk about what we do, how this program actually works. It talks about the inventory process. It talks about that alcoholics have problems in 3 areas of their lives with resentment, fear, and unsolvable sexual problems. And we read through the end of chapter 5 all the way through to the very end, you know. And he read it to me slowly, and I'd stop him and ask him questions. Well, what about this? What about that? So he showed me how to do this inventory. He said, okay, get a piece of paper out and draw some lines here. He showed me where to put the lines in the first column. He said, I'm resentful at. So he said, well, do you have any resentments? I said, geez, not that I can think of. And he said, well, what about that guy in England that screwed you out of all of that money, you know? Oh, him, yeah, okay. So he said, put his name down. What was the resentment? He made me a promise and didn't pay me. Put the resentment down. And then on the last column, he said, now look at the bottom of page 64. It talks about, on the bottom of page 64, it talks about 5 areas of our lives that get affected by these resentments. When we're hating somebody that they don't even know it, we're taking the poison, expecting them to die kind of things. It talks about the areas of our life that gets affected. And it's the self-esteem, the pocketbook, the ambition, the person relationship, and the sex. So I said, yeah, all of those areas are affected. So he had me put those, write that down. So all of those areas were affected by me resenting this guy because he didn't pay me. Now he said, on the other side of that paper, I want you to write on the top, now what is the fault in you that if God would remove it, you would no longer have the resentment? I said, well, wait a minute. What do you mean, fault in me? I worked, I did, I mean, he didn't pay me, he made the promise. How can I have a part in this? And he said, well, you know, we're not taking his inventory, we're taking your inventory now. We're trying to find out what's wrong with you so you can stop drinking, you can talk to God, and he can help you to quit drinking. So I said, shit, what can be my part in this? So I said, well, maybe I could have said to this guy, oh, you know what, we have to sit down and make a contract we have to do. So I guess that was a little irresponsible on my part. It was great. There's a character defect. Irresponsible, my first one. And then he said, now after you realized that you didn't do that, you probably got a little scared to talk to him about it. I said, yeah, so that's fear of confrontation. And then because I was fear of confrontation, I probably got a little silent scorn going, and then maybe some emotional blackmail. And then all of a sudden, all my character defects just popped out, that I was selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-righteous, self-pity, self-delusion. Everything just started to become clear, you know. Now I've got something to work with, you know. So I go on and I do some more resentments. I go on and he shows me how to do the fear list, which is simple. You write down anything that you're afraid of. And the big book is great because the big book talks about these fears, you know. We're shot through with them. We're full. Every alcoholic is full of the same stuff, resentment, fear, and sexual problems. And the fears, it's great because it talks about, all we do is write it down. We put it on paper and then take it to God and say, look, I'm tired of this. I'm afraid of it. Would you please remove this? And turn my attention as you would have, as to what you would have me do instead of being afraid of this thing. Then the big book, one of the best lines in the big book, it says, immediately when we do this, immediately we commence to outgrow the fear. That's a good deal. That's a real good deal. So did that, the sexual inventory. You know, on the road years ago, I used to, every once in a while, if I was like a continent away, I thought it was okay to be unfaithful, you know. And that wasn't cool at all, and it used to make me run back to the bar. I didn't feel good about being unfaithful to my wife. And I had to process that stuff, and the sexual inventory is just incredible because, first of all, it starts with who was hurt. So when someone was hurt, we have to ask ourselves these 7 questions, and the big book is so great because they put it on page 69 where an alcoholic could find it, you know. But they ask these 7 questions: where was I selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate? Or could I have unjustly could I have caused suspicion, jealousy, or bitterness? And what could I have done instead? And when I started looking at those times with the 2 little Japanese girls or something like that, and sure, I was selfish. I just wanted some of this, you know. And inconsiderate, sure, I didn't care what they felt like in the morning when they woke up. Dishonest, yeah, I didn't tell them I was married. Did I unjustifiably arouse suspicion, bitterness, or jealousy? Sure, my wife knew that I might play around. That was the time I should have been calling her. You know, so she got suspicious, bitter, and then jealous. What could I have done instead? I could have gone to bed, called her up and said, everything's fine, the concert was good tonight, I'm going to go to sleep now, I'll talk to you tomorrow. You know, that's too simple that's too simple because me and alcohol does stuff to me that I don't want to do, but I do it anyway. So that, you know, if the new people that haven't had a chance to do that 4th step, you know, it really is the most important thing in the program as far as I'm concerned, because it's what led me, after having done it, it led me to take a look at my alcoholism and accept it, so that I know I got a disease and I know that I have a treatment for it. But until I saw that whole pile of shit, all the resentments, all the fears, all the sexual stuff, those first 3 steps didn't have the same meaning. After I saw that, the first 3 steps took on new meaning. Then I knew that I had no way out. For me to take another drink is absolutely crazy. And the big book, the guys that wrote that big book, they said about this 4th step, they called it vital and crucial that we do this work. They say if we don't do it, we are sure to drink again. They're not screwing around with this, like maybe we're going to drink it. They're saying we are sure to drink again. For us to drink is to die. So thank God I listened when my sponsor read that stuff to me, and I heard vital and I heard crucial. And after doing the 4th step, I really felt like I finally joined Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. That's when things started taking on meaning, because now I had stuff to take to God. I'm saying, hey, I'm tired of being this character defect. I'm tired of this fear. I'm tired of this sexual problem. Help me with it. And as soon as I do that, I've got a conscious connection with my higher power, you know. Things start getting better. I start doing my amends. Well, my amends were incredible. I got to go back to that church where I stole the money out of the collection plate, you know, my little town in Pennsylvania there. First thing I do when I'm traveling, too, is call Alcoholics Anonymous to find out where the meeting is. And the meeting was in that church. The meeting was in my church. The church where I was brought as a baby in the nursery room was the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I went in there, and I'm attending the meeting. And against the wall there's these pictures of these old guys, like the founding fathers of the church. And there was my grandfather, you know. So I was making amends to him for being the bartender at his funeral, you know, that I wasn't too proud of. And I used to go to the cemetery, and I'd, my dad and my grandparents and my Uncle Bunny and a bunch of the family, there was about 9 of them in there. And I'd visit them in the cemetery, and that time I went back for my amends, I visited them, and I'd get out of the car by the tombstones there, and I'd just lose it. I'd start sobbing and crying. Oh, it was awful. I mean, before I even got to the tombstones, and when I got to the tombstones, I was just so ashamed to stand there in the state that I was. It was like my first meeting, standing in front of God in the shape I was in. And what happened was, over the years, you know, I did the work. I did the work in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I went back there a couple of years ago. I went back to bury my mother because she didn't make it through a surgery. But when I went back to bury my mom, I walked up to those tombstones again, and it was different. I felt clean. I felt proud of what I'd become, you know, that I'm standing in front of my family, and it was different. It was different, and I felt good about what had happened in my life. And in doing so, my mother at the time, she had an aneurysm, which is a bubble, and it was on the aorta, the pipe that leads into the heart, and it was supposed to be a really serious surgery. She was only 74, and the doctors said that she had a big, fancy team of doctors. They said, you know, this is going to be tough, but she's going to make it. She's going to be fine, and she did. I think she knew all along that she wasn't going to make it, but as soon as she found out about the surgery, she called me and told me about it. And she was scared shitless, scared beyond belief. And I said, Mom, if only you were an alcoholic. We have ways of dealing with fear. She says, what do you do? And I said, well, you write it on paper and then ask God to remove the fear and turn your attention as to what you would have you do or be. And I said, my book tells me that if I do this, immediately I'll commence to outgrow the fear. It won't just leave, but I'll commence to outgrow the fear. So she started doing this. Then the doctor, she was all set, ready to go in and do the surgery. The doctor postponed it for a month. And she went from fear to terror. Now I'm talking to her every day, and I'm giving her all of the shit that you gave me. I'm giving her my program, you know, and it's really making a difference. I can feel some peace coming to her. So I went home to Philadelphia for the surgery, and she had it at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital there, and my sister came in, and we were there, and she didn't make it through the surgery, you know. So we went back up to the house afterwards to get things in order for the funeral, and I found her journal, and I'm looking through her journal, and in her journal she wrote how her son and his wonderful program of Alcoholics Anonymous made the last days of her life so much better. You know, so that kind of amends, I mean, that kind of a direct amends with a parent, you know, just made me know that I was doing the right thing when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and what you've shown me, and I trust it, and I have faith in it, you know. It's just incredible. That guy in England that didn't pay me all that money, you know, I had to make amends to him, not because he didn't pay me all the money, but because that night when the limo was there to take me to Lagos, Nigeria to do the record, I told him to just stick the job up his ass, you know. So I left at a very untimely time, and I had to call him and say I was sorry for that, you know. Not just that I'm sorry, but I was wrong in doing so, and it was a big mistake in my life, and if there's anything I can do to make this right to you, let me know. So we became friends. He accepted my amend, and we became friends again after a long period of not talking. And then last year he lost his wife, and his wife died to breast cancer, and he had a memorial for her in New York, and we were invited in, which was really a surprise. And my wife and I flew in for the memorial, and we thought we'd be stuck in the back corner of the church someplace, and we were ushered right up to the front, right across from the family kind of deal. And it made me feel incredibly good, you know, after all of this damage and drinking at somebody for 18 years, finally coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, finding a way to deal with my problems and quit drinking and stop hating this man and even love this guy when he lost his wife, you know. Well, two weeks ago, we just got back from Europe. We went over to see, my wife's French, you know, as I said earlier. We go over to see her family all the time, every couple of years or so. And I had an opportunity to go over on some business and see this old boss of mine, the guy that didn't pay me all that money, you know. We went over and just had an incredible time. Went to a concert, went down to his studio, spent 2 days with him that were just amazing. My wife and I were there, and the hugs were long and for real. And we might be doing something together next year, you know. It's like full circle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle to come from, you know, being screwed out of the money that would probably enough money to take care of me the rest of my life, and hating this man and drinking at him for 18 years, to a tear in everybody's eye when we left in the limousine that he paid for, you know. It was just an awesome example of what this program can do, you know. I've seen it now. I've seen it. I know what it can do. And I'll tell you, we are so lucky to have this disease. You know, it's the only disease known to mankind. I'm going to steal a line from my sponsor. It's the only disease known to mankind. When you catch it, you become a better person because you've had it. You know, because it leads us to a spiritual path. And I feel just so overpaid for all of that throwing up and lying and cheating and all of that dumb drink, spending my last dollar on booze and drugs, you know. I am so overpaid for my past life with what I have today. And sometimes it isn't what I expect or what I want. But as long as I let God handle it the way he handled my situation with my old boss, the way he handled the situation with I've just learned how to give the whole deal to him, man. And it's so much easier. It's so much easier. I did a really shitty job of my life, and I didn't understand that until I got that inventory out of the way. That's why it talks about that, in the big book it talks about the inventory as building an archway through which to pass a free man. And today I'm free. I don't have to go up to the casting office, 1040, open the goddamn door, you know. I don't have to do that anymore, you know. My wife, when she hears me at night when I'm on the phone with the guys that I sponsor, and she hears the stuff that's coming out of my mouth, talking to the guys that I sponsor, she knows that her nightmare is over. And my nightmare is over, you know. I have hope in my life today, and I really, I mean, I love everything about Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. I really do. I love going to conventions. I love going to meetings. I love sponsoring guys. I finally figured out after my short time around here, you know, all that the program insists that we be is happy, joyous, and free, you know. And I used to hear that. Well, how the hell are you supposed to be happy, joyous, and free? I've equated that now. I understand it. You want to be happy, joyous, and free, you got to have a life that's free of resentment, fear, and sexual problems. That's the equation. And for me, I mean, that's real easy to do. All I have to do is allow you to give to me what you give to me on a daily basis. Then all I have to do is give it back to somebody else, and I can keep the whole deal. What a deal. Dr. Bob and Bill, man, before 1935, we were all dead people, and they said, sorry, you're going to die a horrible death, and there's nothing we can do for you. 1935 came along. We got more than hope. We got dances. You know, I mean, Jesus. I mean, in San Diego, we were at the convention down there a couple of years ago, the International. 80,000 people hook up from around the world and say the Lord's Prayer together. 80,000 dead people. Tell me this isn't power. Tell me this isn't power. And tell me that this, you know, Jack Daniels and Johnny Walker, they got a lot of power, but man, this is really a good deal. So I'm really pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be sober, and it's really an honor to be able to speak at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Thanks for listening.